There are places on this planet that force us to question the very nature of our reality. Places that appear to be a glitch in the matrix, a rendering error in the grand design of the world. As if nature decided to rewrite the laws of physics and optics for the sake of a single, bold, artistic experiment. We are conditioned to believe that water is blue. This color code is hardwired into our consciousness. The transparency of mountain streams, the leaden weight of a storm-tossed sea, the turquoise of tropical lagoons, or the dark, mysterious depths of forest lakes. Water means life, and in our minds, life is blue. But here, at the very edge of the world, off the southern coast of Western Australia, nature has broken all the rules. It has taken a palette and mixed colors with the reckless abandon of a child or a mad avant-garde artist, creating something that defies logic. Imagine the vast, endless expanse of the Southern Ocean. Cold, dark waves, rolling in uninterrupted from Antarctica, crash against granite cliffs with a primordial roar. This is a harsh, wind-swept frontier. And suddenly, amidst this monochrome of deep indigo and white foam, a bright, almost unnatural shape appears. Lake Hillier, the jewel of the Recherche Archipelago, a body of water that has kept its secret for centuries, holding a color reminiscent of the petal of an English rose, or a glass of strawberry milkshake. How in the middle of a salty ocean, surrounded by wild eucalyptus forests, did this phenomenon arise? It is not an optical illusion. It is not a trick of the sunset, or the reflection of the sky. Nor is it the aftermath of a man-made industrial disaster. It is one of the most beautiful, resilient, and baffling mysteries of the Australian continent. To truly understand the present of this place, we must journey back into the past, to an era when the map of the world was still filled with vast blank spaces. The date is January 1802. The British explorer, cartographer, and captain Matthew Flinders is navigating his ship, the Investigator, along the southern coast of Australia. His expedition is exhausted, battered by the elements, yet driven by an insatiable thirst for discovery. They are charting the unknown, searching for safe passages, describing bays and islands that no European eye has ever seen. Flinders spots an archipelago consisting of hundreds of small islands and jagged rocks, which he names the Archipelago of the Recherche. He needs to survey the area, find fresh water, and rest his crew. He selects the largest island in the cluster, which he would later name Middle Island. On January 15, 1802, Flinders, accompanied by his botanist Robert Brown, climbs to the highest point of the island, a granite peak rising sharply above the dense vegetation. What he saw from that summit made him freeze in disbelief. Below him, set like a precious gemstone within the dark green bezel of the forest, lay a small lake. But its color was impossible. It was pink. In his ship's log, Flinders wrote with restrained British astonishment. In the northeast part was a small lake of a rose color, the water of which, as I was informed by Mayor Thistle who visited it, was so saturated with salt that sufficient quantities were crystallized near the shores to load a ship. The captain descended to the shore. He expected the magic to dissipate upon close inspection, assuming it was merely a reflection of reddish clouds or perhaps the color of the underlying sand. But the water remained a thick, vivid pink, even at his feet. It was so saturated with salt that a solid white crust had formed along the banks, sparkling in the sun like snow. Flinders ordered his men to collect samples. The crew was baffled. Even when poured into a bucket, the liquid did not change color. It remained pink. This was the first documented encounter of European civilization with the phenomenon of Lake Hillier. But if for Matthew Flinders Middle Island was a scientific curiosity, for others, it became a dark sanctuary. The history of these pink shores is steeped not only in salt, but also in blood. We often romanticize the age of sail, imagining noble captains and heroic voyages. But the reality of the southern seas in the 19th century was brutal. The Recherche Archipelago, with its labyrinth of hundreds of islets, treacherous reefs, and hidden coves, was the perfect hiding place for those who did not wish to be found. It was here, in the 1830s, that a drama worthy of a Hollywood thriller unfolded. The protagonist, or rather, the antagonist of this story, was a man named John Anderson, better known as Black Jack, an African-American whaler who had deserted his ship. He was not just looking for freedom, he was looking for power. Middle Island became his fortress. Together with a band of cutthroats and deserters, he established his own law here, or rather, the complete absence of it. They hunted seals, whose pelts were worth their weight in gold, but they did not shy away from piracy, looting ships traveling from the colonies in the east toward Perth. Archaeologists and historians still find traces of their occupation. Shards of pottery, old buttons, the remnants of campfires. Legends persist that in one of the limestone caves on the island, the entrance to which is now masked by dense scrub, Anderson's hoard still lies hidden. Stolen gold, coins, jewelry, treasures that held no value on a deserted island, where the only currency that mattered was fresh water and ammunition. The fate of the king of the archipelago was sealed by his own violence. Anderson's cruelty knew no bounds, and eventually his own crew mutinied. He was murdered in his sleep, right here, beneath the whispering eucalyptus trees, just a short distance from the shores of the Pink Lake. It is a strange irony of fate, to live beside one of the most delicate and beautiful wonders of the world, yet to create a hell of human vice around it. Lake Hillier was a silent witness to these events. Its pink waters saw the rise and fall of this petty pirate empire, but remained indifferent to human fate. To the lake, a decade of human drama is less than a blink of an eye. The lake resisted the high concentration of salt-corroded boots, skin, and clothing. Any scratch turned into a non-healing ulcer. But the main problem was logistics. Lake Hillier is located on an island surrounded by the roaring Forties. Storms here are a daily occurrence. Ships could not get close to the shore due to shallow reefs. The salt had to be ferried on small boats, risking capsizing in the surf. Furthermore, it turned out that Hillier's salt, though pure, contained gypsum impurities that made refinement difficult. The enterprise balanced on the brink of bankruptcy. The final nail in the coffin was the toxicity of the local flora. It is said that using the wood of certain local plants to fire the camp stoves released poisonous oils, contaminating the workers' food and water. Nature seemed to activate an immune response, expelling the foreign bodies from its territory. Within a few years, commercial mining was abandoned. Nature defeated capitalism. The rusting skeletons of machinery that can still be found in the bush are monuments to man's futile attempt to conquer this place. Lake Hillier lies in an isolation that hermits dream of. Middle Island is the largest in the archipelago, yet it remains a wild, untamed frontier. Getting here is difficult. While boats can approach the island, navigation is treacherous. Hidden rocks have claimed many keels in the past. This isolation is precisely what has allowed the lake to remain pristine. The lake itself is small, only about 600 meters long and no more than 250 meters wide. By global standards, it is a pond, but in terms of visual impact, it is a giant. The uniqueness of Hillier lies not just in the water, but in its context. The lake is separated from the deep, cold ocean by only a narrow strip of dunes covered in vegetation. This contrast, the deep, cold indigo of the ocean on one side, and the warm, saturated magenta of the lake on the other, creates a visual shock. Between them lies a barrier of the whitest sand and a dense forest of paper-bark trees. For a long time, the riddle of the color haunted scientists. Why is it pink? Theories ranged from high concentrations of minerals and heavy metals to specific light refraction. Many pink lakes in the world are chameleons. Lake Retba in Senegal or Hutt Lagoon in Australia change their color depending on the season, temperature, and lighting. They can fade, turn red, or lose their color entirely. But Hillier is defined by its constancy. Its color is stable. Take a bucket, scoop up the water, pour it into a glass. It remains bright pink. The solution to this phenomenon lies not in mineral chemistry, but in biology, in life. Recently, as part of the Extreme Microbiome Project, XMP, scientists finally settled the debate. A team of researchers landed on the island to take water samples and perform complex metagenomic analysis. They expected to find a poor, semi-dead environment, as few things can survive in such brine. But what they found shocked them. Lake Hillier is not dead water. It is a giant biological soup boiling with life. The primary artist turned out to be a microscopic single-celled alga called Dunaliella salina. This is a true extremist of the plant world. When this alga finds itself in stressful conditions and hypersaline water combined with relentless ultraviolet radiation from the Australian sun is immense stress, it does not die. Instead, it mobilizes its defenses. To protect itself from sunburn, it begins to produce massive amounts of beta-carotene. This is the same pigment that makes carrots orange and flamingos pink. In high concentrations, this pigment dyes the water a thick, reddish pink. But Dunaliella does not work alone. DNA analysis showed that the lake is teeming with millions of red bacteria called Salinibacter ruber. If the algae are the bright brush strokes on the canvas, these bacteria create the background. And there is more. The water was found to contain archaea, ancient single-celled organisms that remember the Earth when it was still young and volatile. They too possess a reddish hue. Thus, the pink color of Lake Hillier is the result of the collective labor of trillions of microorganisms. It is the visible result of their struggle for life. In a world where salinity kills almost everything, these tiny creatures have created a thriving civilization visible from space. But let's look even deeper, to the molecular level. We say that bacteria and algae color the water, but how exactly do they survive where everything else perishes? Salt is a preservative. It draws moisture out of cells. If you were to place a normal cell, say a cell from your body or a flower petal, into the water of Lake Hillier, a process called osmotic shock would occur. Water would rush out of the cell, trying to equalize the salt concentration. The cell would shrivel, dry out, and die in seconds. The inhabitants of Lake Hillier are the genius engineers of evolution. Dunaliella salina and Salinibacter have found a way to cheat physics. To prevent water from leaving their bodies, they accumulate colossal amounts of glycerol and other compatible solutes inside themselves. They literally become as salty and dense on the inside as the water is on the outside. They equalize the pressure. And the pink color, it's not just decoration. It is a solar shield and a solar panel simultaneously. The membranes of the archaea contain a unique protein, bacteriorhodopsin. It functions somewhat like chlorophyll in plants, but uses a different part of the light spectrum. This purple-red protein captures sunlight and uses its energy to pump protons across the cell membrane, creating an electrical potential. Simply put, these microbes turn their bodies into tiny living batteries, charging themselves from the sun. Lake Hillier is, in essence, a giant living solar power plant covering 15 hectares. The pink color is the color of pure energy. Lake Hillier seems eternal, but Middle Island itself is a fragment of an ancient world. If we rewind time 20,000 years to the last glacial maximum, we would not see an island here. The sea level was 120 meters lower. The Recherche Archipelago was part of the mainland, a range of granite hills rising above a coastal plain. Ancient people, the ancestors of modern Aboriginal Australians, could walk where whales now swim. Pink lakes like Hillier are relics of that era. They are the remnants of ancient marine lagoons or riverbeds that were cut off from the ocean as the water levels began to rise. The granite that forms the foundation of the island is one of the hardest rocks on the planet. It belongs to the Yilgarn Craton, the age of which is measured in billions of years. These stones remember times when there was no multicellular life on Earth yet. The combination of pink water and gray granite covered in orange lichen creates a palette that cannot be reproduced artificially. Geology here dictates biology. It is the granite bowl that prevents the water from seeping into the ground, creating this perfect evaporation pool. It is a collaboration of stone, water, and sun. Above this salty bowl, a different kind of life thrives. Middle Island, despite being hostile to humans, is a critical nesting ground for rare bird species. If you are lucky, flying over the lake, you might spot strange, large gray birds with bright acid yellow beaks. These are Cape Barren geese. They are among the rarest geese in the world. They do not honk. Instead, they make sounds resembling the grunting of a pig. These birds are true hermits. They choose the most isolated islands to raise their young. The salty water of the lake is unfit for them to drink, but the coastal grasses, soaked in minerals, serve as excellent food. And in the waters around the island, another drama unfolds. The Recherche Archipelago is known for its biodiversity, but also for its predators. Cold currents rich in oxygen attract schools of salmon and tuna. And following them come the masters of the deep, great white sharks. This contrast captures the imagination. Just 100 meters from the still, glamorously pink surface of the lake, in the dark blue abyss, the ocean's most perfect predators patrol. Life and death, tranquility and danger are separated here by only a narrow strip of white sand. Many ask, what is it like to actually stand there on the shore? The camera transmits the color, but it cannot transmit the sensation. The air on Middle Island is dense and dry. It is so saturated with salt that after a few minutes you can taste it on your lips. It is the taste of the pure ocean. amplified tenfold. The soundscape here is unique. Because of the dense belt of trees surrounding the lake, the roar of the ocean surf reaches here muffled, as if from a great distance. Inside the ring of forests, an almost unnatural silence reigns, broken only by the buzzing of insects and the dry crackle of paper bark peeling in the wind. When you approach the water, you expect a chemical smell, something artificial. But the lake smells of earth, slightly of violets, a byproduct of the bacteria's metabolism, and of scorching sand. The water feels oily to the touch, viscous like syrup. If you dip your hand in and let it dry, your skin is instantly covered in a fine white powder. This place attacks all your senses at once. It is too bright for the eyes, too salty for the taste, too quiet for the ears. It demands total presence. Today, Lake Hillier is a strictly protected nature reserve. Middle Island holds the status of a Class A nature reserve, the highest level of protection in Australia. Landing on the island is strictly limited. You cannot simply dock a boat and have a picnic here. The Department of Parks and Wildlife issues permits only to scientists and special research groups. Why such strictness? The island's ecosystem is incredibly fragile. To introduce spores of invasive plants or pathogenic bacteria on the soles of shoes would be to risk the unique balance created over millennia. We are protecting the lake from our own love. Imagine if thousands of tourists walked daily on the fragile salt crust, used sunscreens, and left plastic waste. The pink color could fade or disappear altogether. The microbial balance would be disrupted, and the miracle of nature would turn into an ordinary dirty puddle. Therefore, the best and essentially the only way to see Hillier today is from the air. Tourism here exists, but it is contactless. Small planes and helicopters fly out daily from the town of Esperance. For the pilots, this route has become routine, but for the passengers pressed against the windows, it is the journey of a lifetime. Only from a bird's eye view does the full picture reveal itself. Only from above can one grasp the perfect geometry of this place. The oval of the lake looks like a giant's fingerprint. The green of the forest seems like soft velvet, the sand like spilled powdered sugar, and the ocean like liquid sapphire. It is a reminder to us that nature is not obliged to be realistic. It can be fantastic, surreal. It can play with us. Aboriginal people believe that the land is a living book in which the stories of creation, the stories of the Dreamtime, are written. Lake Hillier is one of the brightest yet most mysterious pages of this book. For local tribes, this is a place treated with reverent awe, a place where the earth bleeds or, conversely, blooms with eternal flowering. When the sun begins to set below the horizon, painting the sky over the southern ocean in shades of peach and lilac, an amazing transformation occurs. The colors of the sky are reflected in the pink mirror of the lake, erasing the boundary between above and below. The whole world becomes pink. In this moment, the silence on the island is broken only by the cries of sea eagles soaring overhead and the distant sound of the surf. This is a monument to the invisible. We look at the lake and see simply colored water. But in reality, we are seeing the triumph of life. It is a colossal colony of creatures, each invisible to the human eye. But together they are capable of changing the face of the planet. It is a lesson in humility for humanity. We build cities and pyramids to leave a mark on history, while nature creates masterpieces using only bacteria and salt. Lake Hillier lies there right now, at this very second, while you are hearing these words. Motionless, vibrant, indifferent to human bustle. Like a precious pendant lost by the gods on the green carpet of Middle Island, it reminds us, miracles do not need to be invented. We do not need to seek them in science fiction movies or on other planets. They are already here. We need only to open our eyes, look down from the height of flight, and learn to protect what we have been given. This pink heart of the ocean beats in unison with the ancient rhythms of the earth. And as long as it keeps its color, the world retains a space for mystery, a mystery that we do not want to fully solve. We just want to watch and believe that our world is far more wonderful than we have grown accustomed to thinking.